Hey everyone, it's Stephanie, and today we're going to talk about some of the fundamental concepts of motion. For today's purposes, it will be motion in one direction. These are position, displacement, velocity, and speed. So position is defined as where a particle is in space. Say there's a girl walking over to her friend's house for a sleepover and her friend lives on the same street. So let's draw an x-axis to represent the street. And her house is located at point x1. It's a very pretty house. And her friend's house is located at point x2. And at time t1, it's just an arbitrary time, she's in her house and is about to leave her house to go to her friend's house. Oh, she's so pretty. And at time t2, she just arrived at her friend's house. So if we want to see her position, or where she is at every single point in time between t1 and t2, we would graph a position time graph, which looks something like this. So this would be the time, and this would be the position. So she could have walked at a constant velocity like this, or she could have done something like this. And with the position time graph, we can tell. And later on, we can find her velocity based on the position time graph. Displacement is the change in the position of the particle, or delta x. And that defined is the final position minus the initial position. If we're on the x-axis, if x final is greater than x initial, then delta x is positive, and you're moving in the positive direction. But if x final is less than x initial, then delta x is negative, and you're moving in the negative x direction. So velocity is the rate of change of the position of an object, and when you give a velocity, you give both the speed and the direction. So average velocity is defined as the displacement over time. So v is equal to delta x over delta t. The difference between velocity and speed is that velocity is a vector and has direction, while speed is a scalar quantity and does not. Average speed is the total distance over the time, not displacement, and distance and displacement are two different things. So speed is equal to the distance over time. So say we have a rectilinear motion graph, and this is point 0, this is point 1. I'm doing that just for convenience's sake. And it shows a particle that moves along the x-axis and goes back and forth. So at time t is equal to 0, the particle is at 0. And over the next few seconds, it moves like this. And this is at time t equals 3. So to find the average velocity, we need to find the displacement. And to find the displacement, only 2 points matter, the initial point and the final point. So you start at 0 and you end at 1. So delta x, or your displacement, is 1. So your velocity, or average velocity, is the displacement over the time, which is 3. So your average velocity is 1/3. To find speed, you need to find distance, which is found a little bit differently. You start at point 0 and then you go to point 1, so that's a distance of 1. But then you go from point 1 back to point 0, which makes a total distance of 2. Then you go from point 0 back to point 1, and then that makes a total distance of 3. So your total distance is 3. So your speed is your distance, which is 3, divided by the time, which is 3, and it's 1. So in a position time graph, the slope would be the velocity, and the absolute value of the slope would be the speed. So we have a position time graph. position. And this is time. And say we're moving backwards. So if we're moving backwards, velocity is negative because the slope is negative. But speed is still positive